My parents skipped my wedding because I married before my perfect sister. While I stood in my dress with my bouquet going limp and my voice shaking through vows they refused to witness, they were 6 miles away at a brunch with her. They smiled for photos that would later go on Facebook with the caption "Family First" under a picture I wasn't in. I found that out because my cousin showed me the post in the bathroom between the ceremony and the reception. Her hand was shaking as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know they were really going to do it." I just stared at the screen. I looked at my mom's smile and my dad's hand on my sister's shoulder and the little stack of pancakes artfully placed in front of them. In the corner of the photo, you could see the timestamp. It was the exact moment my husband slid a ring on my finger. It was the moment they chose not to see. 2 hours earlier, I had stood at the back of the small garden venue clutching my dad's old watch in my hand because he wasn't there to walk me down the aisle. My uncle offered. My husband offered. The officiant offered to have us walk together. I shook my head and walked alone. If my parents wanted a picture of their daughter abandoned, fine. I would give them that image, just not the way they imagined it. I walked toward the man who loved me, past rows of chairs that held my friends, cousins, and my husband's family. My mother's chair was empty. My father's chair was empty. The people who taught me that family came before everything couldn't be bothered to show up when it actually mattered. "Do you want to wait a little longer?" "Maybe they're stuck in traffic," my maid of honor whispered an hour before the ceremony. "No," I said. "They're not coming." I already knew. I didn't know because of a dramatic phone call or a screaming fight. I knew because of a quiet conversation 2 weeks earlier at their dining table where my mother folded her napkin into crisp little squares and said, "We're not blessing this." My father stared at his plate like his eggs were more interesting than his daughter's life. It hadn't always been like this. At least not in ways I could name as a kid. Growing up, we were that family. We were the one other people pointed to in church and at school and said, "They've got it all together." My parents were active in everything. PTA, the Homeowners Association, the worship team, charity drives. If there was a committee with a newsletter, my mother was on it. My father dressed in press slacks on Saturdays, just in case someone stopped by. Our house was always tidy. Our smiles were always ready. It looked good from the outside. From the outside, our story was simple. 2 daughters. One perfect. One not. My older sister Emily was the golden one. The firstborn. The straight-A student and varsity star. She was the girl who floated through adolescence while adults nodded approvingly behind her back. "That one's going places," they'd say. My parents would smile and say, "We're so proud of her." There was always something to show off. Student of the month. State championships. Scholarships. Internships. Engagement announcements later on. They had a bulletin board in the hallway dedicated to her achievements. I joked once, "Is there space for me up there?" My mother patted my arm gently and said, "When you give us something to put up, of course." She said it with a laugh and with love in her voice, but the message stuck. I wasn't a disaster. I just wasn't shiny. I was the kid who got decent grades, drew in the margins, and lost things. The one who forgot Spirit Week and spilled juice on church dresses. I liked reading more than sports. I liked quiet more than crowds. My parents didn't scream at me and they didn't hit me. They just treated me like a slightly disappointing side character in their main story. Their main story was the one where Emily shone. Every family needs a star, I guess. Some families also need an audience. My parents were obsessed with appearances. Everything was filtered through, what will people think? If Emily got a B, it was a problem because colleges will see that. If I got a B, it was, at least you passed. They weren't outwardly cruel. They were just indifferent. Somehow that hurt more. When we were teenagers, my mother would say things like, "Em is just more driven. That's okay. You're the sweet one." It sounded nice, but it was a box. Ambition belonged to her. Niceness belonged to me. As if I had been assigned nice but forgettable at birth and should be grateful for it. When Emily got a boyfriend, there were dinner invitations, careful questions, and a lot of "we trust you." When I had a crush, my mother smiled and said, "Oh, honey, let's not get too distracted. We don't want you throwing yourself at the first boy who looks your way." At 16, those little comments start to write themselves on your bones. I stopped bringing my life home. I applied to a state college an hour away. It was not the one they bragged about in Christmas letters. I studied education because I liked kids and it felt real. My mother called it safe. Her voice always held a tiny bit of disappointment. "We always thought you'd do something creative," she'd say, as if teaching wasn't, as if it was a plan B. Emily went out of state on a full ride. The family emails became, "Emily's doing amazing things at her prestigious university, while our younger one is finding her way too." I was a footnote. She was the headline. She visited at holidays like returning royalty. My parents fussed over her, asked her about exams and professors. They asked me if I was still just teaching Sunday school. When I met Ben, I didn't bring him home right away. He wasn't what my parents pictured when they imagined their daughters' husbands. He was kind, solid, and steady. He was a mechanic who loved his work. He had grown up on a farm with 4 siblings and parents who hugged you like you'd always belonged there. He didn't wear suits. He wore grease-stained jeans and smiled with his whole face. I met him when my car broke down in the school parking lot. He towed it and stayed late fixing it, explaining each step like I was a person, not a dumb girl. He asked me out by saying, "I'd like to see you again when your car isn't screaming for help in the background." I said yes because talking to him felt like breathing. We dated quietly at first. We had dinners at his parents' place, cheap movie nights, and Sunday mornings at my church. At church, my parents barely noticed him. They noticed Emily's posts from Europe. They noticed when the pastor praised them for volunteering. They noticed when other parents complimented my mother's casserole. They did not notice the man who helped me grade papers at midnight just so we could sit on the couch together. When I finally told my mother we were serious, that we were talking about the future, she said, "That's nice," in the same tone she used when I told her about a new brand of cereal. Then she followed it with, "Just don't rush anything, sweetie. You're still young, and we don't want you to settle." Settle for what? I asked, knowing exactly what she meant. "You're marrying down, financially speaking," she said, her voice dropping like it did when she gossiped. "You've worked so hard. And he's a mechanic." She said the word like janitor or criminal. "He runs his own shop, Mom. He does well. And even if he didn't, he treats me well," I answered. She smiled that tight smile and said, "Love doesn't pay the bills." It was rich coming from a woman whose husband had worked blue-collar for decades. But this wasn't about reality. It was about optics. Emily was dating a lawyer by then. A polished man who talked like a podcast. My parents ate him up. Such a good match, they'd whisper to each other. The puzzle pieces were visible if you stood back. In their perfect family tableau, Emily married first, big church wedding, lawyer husband, magazine spread, Christmas cards. Later, maybe, I would marry some nice church boy who didn't clash too hard with their image. In their minds, I think I was supposed to follow a script they could control. The problem was my life refused to stay on their storyboard. I got engaged to Ben before Emily got engaged to her lawyer. It wasn't planned as revenge. It was just the timing of love. He proposed in his parents' backyard with fireflies and a cheap ring he apologized for. I cried because he thought he needed to apologize. Their love felt loud and full and real. His mom hugged me and said, "Welcome to the madhouse." His dad high-fived him and asked when the barbecue was. I felt chosen. Not for how I looked on paper, but for me. When I called my parents that night, my mother answered on speakerphone with my father there. "I have news," I said, my voice shaking with excitement. "You're pregnant," my mother said immediately, half joking and half accusing. "No," I said. "I'm engaged." There was silence. It lasted just a heartbeat too long. To Ben, I added, because maybe they thought I meant someone else. My mother was the first to speak. "Oh," she said, and somehow made that one syllable sound like a dropped mug. My father said, "Congratulations," but it sounded stiff, like a line he'd been given and didn't like. We're thinking of a small wedding at the botanical garden in town, I continued, trying to steamroll the awkwardness. Maybe in the spring. This spring? My mother asked sharply. Yes. Why? That's very soon, she said. You've only been dating, what, 2 years? 3, I corrected. And we know what we want. My mother exhaled dramatically. It's just, Emily isn't even engaged yet. There it was. The real problem. So, I said, even though I knew. So it's going to look strange, she said. People will talk. They'll think you're rushing. They'll think Emily is being left behind. They'll think we don't have our priorities straight. We still don't know if Ben is right. It puts us in a very difficult position. Your position, I said. My marriage. My father cut in. We're just saying, maybe wait until Em and Mark are further along. Give it some time. Let things happen in order. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. In order. I repeated. You want me to schedule my life around Emily's engagement timeline so nobody talks about you? My mother bristled. Watch your tone, she said, pulling out that phrase from my childhood. My father added, we're thinking of the family. The bigger picture. I am the family, I said. There is no bigger picture without me. Don't be dramatic, my mother snapped. You always make everything about you. This is about all of us. About what's best for everyone. You know how much pressure Emily is under. She's older. People expect certain things. If you jump the line, it will humiliate her. Jump the line. The phrase felt like a slap. Like I had cut ahead at a theme park instead of just falling in love first. So what are you saying? I asked, my throat tightening. I'm saying, my mother answered carefully, that if you insist on rushing into this, you should not expect us to pretend we approve. We can't support a wedding that isn't in the right order. In the right order, I repeated again, because if I didn't, I was going to scream. What does that even mean, Mom? I'm not pregnant. I'm not running off. I'm marrying a good man who loves me. A man who doesn't match you, she said. And you know what people will say. They will say we raised you poorly. They will say we let you throw yourself away. Do you want that for us? Something hardened inside me. I'm not a brochure for your parenting, I said quietly. I'm your daughter. My father said, we're not forbidding you. We're just saying we can't be part of it if you insist on doing it this way. So you won't come? I asked, hoping I had misheard. We hope you'll reconsider the timing, he replied. It wasn't a no, but it definitely wasn't a yes. I hung up feeling sick. I cried in Ben's arms that night and told him everything. He held me and said, we can push the date back if you want. For a minute, I almost said yes. I almost rearranged my life to fit their presentation needs. Then I thought about standing in front of my students one day, telling them to be brave and live honestly. I realized I'd be a hypocrite. No, I said. We keep the date. My parents didn't call back with congratulations. They didn't ask about dresses or venues. Emily texted me, Mom says you're being difficult. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop. She arrived in a blazer and perfect makeup. She hugged me and said, let me see the ring. I showed her. It's pretty, she said, like she was grading an assignment. We sat down and she launched right in. You know how Mom and Dad are, she said. They care a lot about appearances. You blindsided them. How did I blindside them? I asked. I told them I was in a serious relationship. They thought serious meant years down the line, not wedding invites in 3 months, she said. You're not even 30. Why not give it some time? Why do they need time? I asked. I'm the one getting married. Because, she said, as if it were obvious, they want to present things in the right order. It's messy otherwise. You mean they wanted you to go first, I said. She shifted in her seat. It would have been easier. For who? I asked. For you. She sighed. It's been hard, okay? Being the one everyone watches. Everyone asks me when Mark is going to propose, if we're next. Mom cries about wanting to see her firstborn walk down the aisle. And then you just announce you're engaged to a guy they're not sold on. It's a lot. I stared at her. This was the woman who had been held up as the gold standard my entire life. Admitting the pedestal was a prison. You could tell them it's not a competition, I said. You could tell them you're happy for me. She looked at me with something like guilt, then shrugged it off. Things have a natural order, she said, parroting them. I'm just saying don't be surprised if they sit this out. Sit out their daughter's wedding because the lineup is wrong? I asked. Do you hear how insane that sounds? You're making it dramatic, she replied. You can still have a beautiful day with Ben's family and your friends. And when we do something later with Mark, Mom and Dad will be all in. That's just how they are. There it was again. That's just how they are. As if temperament were weather, not choice. I left that coffee shop with a knot in my chest and a decision forming under it. The invitations went out. Mine had carefully chosen calligraphy. Theirs had a mental asterisk over my parents' names. When they finally RSVP'd, it was with a printed card that read, "Regretfully declines." My mother added a handwritten note, "We hope you understand our heart." I didn't. But I understood something else. They had made their choice. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a mix of joy and grief. Ben's family threw us a shower with too much food and loud laughter. My parents sent a card with no gift, no call, and no "we're proud of you." Just a reminder that the silence was deliberate. The night before the wedding, I sat with my future mother-in-law while she hemmed my dress. She asked gently, "Do you want me to sit where your mother would have sat?" I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "I don't want anyone to take her place," I said. "But I'd like someone to be there." She kissed my forehead and said, "I'll be there." On the day of the wedding, as guests arrived, I watched the driveway every single time, even though I'd sworn I wouldn't. My uncle walked up and hugged me too tightly, whispering, "They're not coming, kiddo." I nodded. I had already known, but hearing it out loud still hurt. The ceremony was beautiful, even with those empty chairs where they should have been. My husband cried when he saw me. His father squeezed his shoulder. My best friend held my bouquet while I slipped the ring on his finger. There was love, real, messy, full love, in every direction, but the one I had always been told mattered most. During the reception, my cousin pulled me into the bathroom with that look that says, "I have something you need to see, even though you don't want to." She held up her phone. My mother's profile was open. A new picture had been posted 20 minutes earlier. My parents and Emily were sitting at a trendy brunch spot, all dressed up, champagne on the table, my father's arm around my sister. The caption read, "So grateful for family time with our girl before her next big chapter." Some moments you just can't miss. My cousin whispered, "I'm so sorry." I didn't realize they meant literally not coming. I thought they might show up later. I stared at the photo. I stared at the timestamp that overlapped with my vows. Something in me finally snapped into clarity. It wasn't that they couldn't come. It was that they wouldn't. Not if they couldn't be seen clapping for their favorite child first. I laughed. It was a sharp, humorless sound. "Of course," I said. "They couldn't miss their photo op. Do you want me to take this down? Report it?" "I don't know," my cousin asked. I shook my head. "Leave it," I said. "Let everyone see who they are." I washed my face, reapplied my lipstick, and walked back out into the reception. I danced with my husband, my in-laws, and my friends. I danced with my found family. I pretended my heart wasn't breaking and healing at the same time. After the wedding, my parents didn't call. They didn't ask for photos. They didn't send a gift. Emily texted once, heard everything was nice. "Sorry we couldn't be there. You know how Mom is." I replied, "I do now." Over the next year, their perfect family image started to crack in ways I hadn't expected. It was little things at first. My dad lost his temper at a church meeting and yelled at another leader in front of everyone. My mother posted a vague rant about people not respecting authority. Word got around that they weren't as easy as they seemed from the pews. Emily's relationship with Mark, the lawyer, hit a bump. He got a job offer in another state and expected her to follow him immediately, no questions asked. She hesitated. She had just landed a promotion. My parents, of course, told her to go. "You can't risk losing him," my mother said. "You can find another job. You can't find another man like that." Emily didn't go. She stayed. Mark left. The engagement my parents had been banking on evaporated. There was no triumphant firstborn's big wedding to anchor their narrative anymore. I watched from a distance as they scrambled. My mother posted throwback photos of Emily's college awards as if to remind the world she was still golden. My father bragged loudly about her career focus now, glossing over the fact that she had been left. The cracks widened when a family in our church filed a complaint about my parents' behavior on a committee. It wasn't legal, just messy and public enough that my mother's perfect family Christmas letter that year noticeably lacked a section about our wonderful church family. I might have felt pity if I hadn't still been nursing the wound from my wedding day. Emily started calling me more often after her breakup. At first, she talked about work. The silence between us started thinning. One night, months later, she asked out of nowhere, was it really that bad, seeing that post? I didn't sugarcoat it. Yes, I said. It was. She sighed. I told them not to post it that day, she admitted. Mom said it was unrelated. She said your choices are separate from our lives. I laughed softly. They weren't separate, Em. They were literally at brunch to avoid my wedding. She didn't argue. They're freaking out now, she said. People have started asking where their other daughter is. They ask why you never come to events. Mom and Dad hate talking about it. They had their chance to include me, I said. They chose a photo over a seat. Emily was quiet. Then she said, you know they're going to try to fix it if it starts to look bad enough. Do you think that's what I want? I asked. For them to come back because it looks bad? I don't know what you want, she admitted. I don't think they do either. They only know what they want you to be. Time did what time does. It moved on. My marriage settled into its own imperfect, warm pattern. We bought a small house. His parents came over every weekend with food. Our neighbors knew our names. My parents stayed in the background, occasionally liking a photo of mine but never commenting. Digital ghosts. The perfect family image continued to crumble in slow motion. My mother lost her position as head of a committee after a new family refused to sign up for anything because they felt judged. My father's outbursts at meetings became a quiet joke. There he goes again, people would say. When you build your identity on being the model family, any imperfection feels like scandal. The final crack came from a direction none of us expected. Emily. My perfect sister started dating someone new. He wasn't a lawyer or a doctor or a shiny golden boy. He was a journalist who worked for a local paper and had a history of advocating for things our parents called troublemaking. He was kind, smart, and curious. He asked questions my parents didn't like about faith, about justice, about appearances versus truth. Emily fell in love with him anyway. When she brought him home, my parents smiled their tight smiles and called him interesting. Afterward, my mother called me and said, she's making a mistake. I almost choked. You supported her moving across the country for a man who left as soon as it got hard, but this is your line? He's not appropriate, she said. He doesn't fit our family. I thought about Ben. I thought about oil-stained hands and honest eyes. I thought about how he didn't fit either and how much better my life was for it. Maybe it's not your family he's trying to fit into, I said. Maybe it's hers. My mother sniffed. You wouldn't understand, she said, slipping back into the old groove. You never cared about how things looked. That was the last time I let her talk about me like that without pushing back. I care very much, I said. I care how it looked when you skipped my wedding to take selfies at brunch. I care how it looked when you told everyone you were so proud of your girls and left one out of every picture. I care how it looked when my husband's parents walked me down the aisle instead of you. She bristled. We already apologized for that, she lied. They never had. You never apologized, I said. You justified. There's a difference. Before she could answer, there was noise on her end. Muffled voices. My father in the background saying, I won't pretend to like him, and Emily's voice saying, you don't have to like him. You just have to not insult him. My mother hung up in the middle of the chaos. Months later, word spread that Emily and her boyfriend had decided to have a small civil ceremony. Just the two of them and a couple of friends. No church. No big dress. No audience. My parents were furious. She's thrown away her chance for a real wedding, my mother lamented to anyone who would listen. It's so embarrassing. What will people think? Someone finally said what needed to be said. Maybe she's tired of performing for people. My parents were so busy being angry about having no big firstborn wedding to show off that they didn't notice the ground washing away under their image. People had watched them skip my wedding. They had heard them complain about being excluded from Emily's. The pattern was visible. The calls from church committees slowed. Invitations stopped arriving. When your brand is perfect family, you can't afford too many public acts of selfishness. Eventually, my parents realized the tide had turned. That's when they showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning. I was in sweatpants, barefoot, making pancakes with Ben. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands and opened it. There they were. My mother clutched a casserole dish like it was a peace treaty. My father wore his pressed polo shirt and looked older than I remembered. My mother smiled a practiced smile. We were in the neighborhood, she said, which was a lie. They lived 40 minutes away. Can we come in? My father asked. Ben stepped into the hallway, ruddy but calm. He looked at me, waiting for my cue. My heart thudded. The younger me would have stepped aside immediately. She would have taken the casserole and the crumbs of attention. I wasn't her anymore. Why are you here? I asked. There was no softness in my tone this time. My mother's smile faltered. We've been doing a lot of thinking, she said. It was the same line Daniel had once used on me. We miss you. We miss being a family. My father nodded. Things have been difficult, he said. People have misunderstood us. We realize we may have made mistakes. I folded my arms. What mistakes? I asked. We should have been at your wedding, my mother said. Her eyes filled with tears right on cue. We see that now. We got too caught up in wanting everything to be perfect, and we forgot what really mattered. It sounded almost right. Then she ruined it. Now, with what's happening with Emily and people talking, we just want our family back together. We need to show that we're united. There it was. The truth under the apology. We need to show. Not, we want to love. We need to look united. Not, we need to be better. I felt anger rise, hot and clean. You skipped my wedding because you were worried about how it would look, I said. Now that it looks bad for you, you want me back in the picture. That's not fair, my mother protested. We always loved you. We just didn't approve of your choices. My choice to marry a man who loves me? I asked. Ben's hand brushed my back, studying me. My father said, we're trying here. Can't you meet us halfway? Halfway between what? I asked. Between ignoring my existence and using me as a prop? My mother's tears spilled over. Why are you being so harsh? She whispered. Because I spent my entire life waiting for you to choose me the way you chose her, I said. My voice broke, but my stance did not. I waited for you to show up just because I was your kid, not because it made you look good. The one day I needed you to be there for me, you chose brunch. My father looked away, ashamed or just uncomfortable. My mother reached out as if to touch my arm. I stepped back. We can be better now, she said quickly. We can come to things. We can have dinners. You can fix your image, I cut in. But you can't undo what you did. You taught me exactly where I ranked. I believe you. I'm done auditioning for your love. Silence hung between us, heavy and familiar. Ben cleared his throat. You should go, he said gently. My mother's face hardened. The tears vanished from her eyes as fast as they had appeared. So that's it, she said. You're cutting us off? After everything we've done? I almost laughed. You skipped my wedding, I said again, because some facts need repeating. You chased optics over your child. You don't get to cry after everything we've done like that erases it. My father tried one more time. One day your kids might do this to you, he said. Then you'll understand how it feels. I met his eyes. One day my kids will know that I showed up for them even when it was inconvenient, I said. Even when it messed up my picture. And that will make all the difference. My mother's fingers tightened around the casserole dish, like squeezing it could squeeze me back into place. People will talk, she warned, gripping her favorite weapon. I nodded. They already are, I said. And for once, they're seeing the truth. She flinched. Image had always been her god. My father looked tired and suddenly very small. Please, he said softly. We just want to come in. Sit down. Talk. I took a deep breath. I felt the weight of years pressing on my chest. The little girl who wanted her parents' approval. The teenager who watched her sister's bulletin board fill up. The bride who walked alone. All of those versions of me were standing at that door, watching, hoping, and judging. I thought of inviting them in, of giving them another chance to twist the knife. Then I thought of the life I had built. I thought of the husband behind me. I thought of the in-laws who never missed a milestone. I thought of the peace I felt when my phone didn't light up with their critiques. I waited my whole life for you to choose me, I said quietly. I'm done waiting. My mother stared at me like I had slapped her. My father opened his mouth and closed it again, for once having no words. I stepped back just enough to make it clear I was behind the threshold, but not opening it wider. You can leave the casserole if you want, I added, a strange bubble of humor rising in my chest. But you can't come in. My mother made a strangled sound, turned on her heel, and marched down the walk. My father hesitated, looked at me with something almost like regret, then followed her. They drove away. They shrank into two small figures in a car that had once felt like a lifeline. I stood in the doorway until they turned the corner. Then I closed it gently. Ben wrapped his arms around me. You okay? He asked. I exhaled, my whole body shaking. For the first time, I said. Later that night, we sat at our table with his parents and our friends, laughing over the casserole we decided to eat anyway. I realized something simple and devastating and freeing. Their perfect family image had finally crumbled. It didn't crumble because I ruined it. It crumbled because it was made of paper, not love. It couldn't survive the weight of two daughters choosing themselves. I did feel sad. Grief doesn't vanish just because you set a boundary. But underneath the sadness was something new. There was a steady, quiet pride. I hadn't just married before my perfect sister. I had stepped out of the frame my parents kept trying to shove me into. In the blank space outside their picture, I found something better than their approval. I found my own.